Welcome to the Hen House Podcast, where mothers rise together in authentic conversation and sacred connection. With your hosts, Chantal Breanne and Andrea Sjoeberg. It's time to jump into the Hen House. Hey guys, welcome back to the Hen House Podcast. And today we have a special guest, Asja, my friend, Asja Davis. And we're going to talk about kind of like the importance of friendships in motherhood. So I thought it would be perfect to invite my friend, my first mom friend, on to talk to her. Asja is a stay-at-home mom. She has 2 babies. And Asja, do you want to tell how we met, maybe to start it off, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can tell.
Okay.
So we met online on an app. It's like not a dating app, but like a finding a mom friend app. Do you remember the name of the app?
Wait, I thought okay, so wasn't it Meetup that we met on?
Was it? So it wasn't an app?
It was an app, like,
Oh,
but
it
it
wasn't
was
that.
Meetup, yeah. Because there's
Oh, okay.
Peanut. There's the Peanut app, which
Yeah.
is like specifically for making mom friends, but we
Yeah.
met on Meetup, I thought.
Oh, okay. Honestly, I don't even remember the name of the app, but I just knew it was an app. Um,
Yeah.
But yeah, so well, then maybe you should tell the story because I think you remember a little bit more detail than I do.
Well, I remember that we were both pregnant
Yeah.
with our daughters.
Yes.
And I specifically was looking for someone in like a similar life stage as me because I didn't have a lot of friends in Atlanta. And I thought, how awesome would it be to like make friends who are also pregnant. So I can't remember if it was like a group, or I don't know if like I messaged you or you messaged me. I can't remember, but I remember that we had a phone call. I do remember
Yeah.
that. And you told me like that you were pregnant and you were having a girl. And
We're having a girl too.
yeah, we were both having girls. And then you mentioned that you were a teacher, but you were going to be quitting, or you had already quit your job, I
Yeah,
think.
I think when I met you, I had just quit my job.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah, I don't even remember us having a phone call. That's why it's so crazy. But I remember our first initial meetup and
See, I don't remember that.
what? We went to, I don't remember where we went, but it was in Midtown and we sat outside and there was like 1,000 birds flying around us. And I was like, man, this is my first time meeting her. Like, I don't want to like be weird and say I do not like all these birds flying around. But then it just had to come up in conversation. And then that's kind of like a weird icebreaker because I was like, I'm scared of birds. There's so many birds around you. Do you remember? Um,
I don't
no.
remember that.
And then I remember after we hung out, like we both went home and sent each other pictures of our daughter's rooms. And
Okay.
yeah, and then like weirdly enough, after that, we just started hanging out so many times. And my husband is like, who is this random stranger that you're hanging out with all the time? Like, is this person real? Like, are they gonna kidnap you? And I was like, no, she's real. And then really we've just been besties ever since. Like you were there for me when I had my daughter, then you had your daughter 3 months later. We've just kind of been inseparable since.
Yes, and it's so funny because it's almost like if it wasn't for the internet and the fact that we were both pregnant, we would probably have never met.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say like I'm a big advocate for like Peanut, the moms. It's like the dating app for meeting mom
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause like you, I didn't have any mom friends either. So it was like essential.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know if you found the same thing, Andrea, but it's harder to connect. I have found it harder to connect with people that I was friends with before having kids, if they don't have kids, because it's like a big lifestyle change. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it depends maybe a little bit on the friends. Like, I feel like I have one friend who I've been friends with, goodness, like since like early 20s. Like both of these two friends I've been friends with since early 20s and whatever, and kept up long distance friendships because somehow I never end up living in the same town as as my close friends, but that's okay. And and the one, she loves babies. Like she just loves
Okay.
babies. She wants to become a mom herself.
Yeah.
And she just met someone who, she's, like finally met her person and
Yeah.
who wants to have a baby with. And her sister has a baby, and like she just loves babies. And so I feel like for her, it was really, really easy. Like even when she came to visit, it was super easy. And like I mean, yes, life does change a little bit, but she was super accommodating to that. Then I have another friend. She's kind of one who has said, I'm never going to have kids. And she had come over and she's like, babies are boring. And you don't do anything. Like, why are we staying in the house all the time? And like just walking around your neighborhood, like there's something wrong with you. And she's like, I don't like little kids because all they want is their mom or their dad and they don't want to play. And my daughter proved her wrong because my daughter was like so much fun. And by the time she left here, she's like, oh, babies are kind of fun. You're not fun. You're crazy. She's like, you're too picky about everything. And
Oh
there's
no.
so many rules. And I don't like this.
Oh no.
Like you all are difficult to stay with. And I'm like,
So
we
funny.
didn't have that many rules, but okay. But it's like, but she's not familiar with babies. So I'm like, it's information because I have to keep my daughter safe.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, maybe she can't eat that or hold that because it, whatever, right? Um, and so she was like left here as soon as possible. Like she left like days early and she's like, I'm gonna go back to Atlanta and just stay there by myself for a few days until my flight leaves. But yeah, peace out, I'm gone. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we've totally scared her off. She's never coming back. But oh well, oh well.
Well, it's funny because I think that in a way, like we almost change a little bit after we have kids too. So it's like our life changes, and it I guess if you don't have kids or you haven't been around a lot of kids, it can seem like alarming to people that knew us beforehand.
Right. Well, and it does change a lot. And I think really any major life event tends to change things a lot, but it's like having a child just changes your whole world. It's like changes the whole focus of your world. It changes the whole like path. It changes what you're concerned about.
Yeah. So, Asha, you mentioned that you quit your job when you were pregnant. Can you still hear us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when you quit your job, because that kind of ties into like changing your life. So can
Yeah.
you tell us kind of about like why or what made you want to do the switch into being like a stay-at-home mom?
Well, I would say like I always like kind of wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and like when I met Ray, I was still in college, and like we would always say like I'm gonna be a stay-at-home mom. It was just always like a thing. But then I graduated and I got a job, and then once I got my job, I was like, no, like I could never, like I love my job too much. I could never be a stay-at-home mom. But then once I was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months pregnant, it was just getting harder and harder to teach while being pregnant and like deal with like a whole classroom and like being so sick. And then teaching takes up like so much of your time. Like the school hours are like 7 to 3, but you have to be there way before that and you have to stay until a certain time every day. And it's just like a very not hard, but it just requires a lot of time and effort to be a teacher. And then my husband's like, yeah, you're just getting home so late and you're so pregnant. And then my dad would be like, you're working too late and you're pregnant, you're so stressed out. And then I had lost a lot of weight because I was so stressed from teaching. So I was like, I'm just going to be done with this. And I'm just going to like focus on being a stay-at-home mom.
That's awesome. And it's funny because all three of us kind of did that.
Yeah.
Andrea, I know you stepped back from
Yeah.
adjusting.
I quit. We just kind of like found out I was pregnant, and our whole life we just were like, boom, everything got changed like really rapidly. We're like I don't know, like within 2 weeks we found out I was pregnant, and then we had decided to move to a different city in a different state
Oh my gosh.
so that my husband could have a job, because previously I had like my business was more established and doing better, and I just had this feeling, I'm like, you get to choose, you get to do your work or you get to do the pregnancy. Like you kind of can't do both.
Yeah.
Like just because of the pressure. And I was so sick too, like just so sick. And it was so hard. Like it was like I would get up and get dressed and I'm like, I have to lie down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'd be like adjusting someone and I'd go 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes until it was done. Then I'd go vomit in the sink and then drink some water and then go back 5 more minutes. Don't vomit on anyone. Please don't vomit on anyone. And so, so I quit around 13 weeks, and it was such a relief. And I had loved my job too. And it was just kind of like, I can't right now, I can't do both.
Yeah.
And so I was just so happy to quit. It was like, I did not miss it at all.
Yeah.
Like not initially anyways, because I was like, that was so hard. I'm just thrilled to be taking a step back right now and have, like just get to focus on like growing a human.
Yeah.
You know, which is a lot. Like, and I think it's, you know, and some women do really well working and being pregnant and having a little baby and stuff like that. And for me, I'm like, that's just,
I can't imagine.
I'm like, it was just for me. I was like, I need to take a step back. I'm like, will I go back to work at some point? Yes.
Yeah.
But haven't quite made it there yet. I'm open at least to going back at this point, but
it's
a lot of like small jobs, like part-time jobs. I've done like a bunch of part-time jobs like throughout being a mom. Like I started online teaching for like a year. I was like a soccer coach for a year. I worked at a gym for like a year. Just like little small things, but nothing like major. I haven't worked in a year, but just like little small things to get me out of the house and like make me like feel like, you know, kind of alive without having to have a full-time focus.
Right.
That's awesome.
That makes sense. Yeah, I love that.
Because I think it's important too to like get out of the house, especially when you have 2 kids, because sometimes it can be a lot. Or even 1 kid, honestly. But yeah, that's so interesting because I also quit while I was pregnant. Well, I didn't quit, but I was like, I walked out one day because I used to work in an office. And I was just like, this is not working. And I left and I worked from home. And I was like, I never went back.
Oh my gosh. Did you tell them you weren't coming back?
Yes. Well, at the time I worked with like my ex-partner, so they knew. I was just like, I'm not coming back. Like, like I'm done. Like I cannot do this. Like it was just I was sick, but it's like pregnancy is just so all encompassing. Like it consumed everything, and even like preparing for the birth, and I just really didn't have the time or the space to focus and be sitting at a desk for like 8 hours a day. I was like, this is not working. Like I'm so uncomfortable. I don't know how. I really commend people that are able who do it, and I know some people don't have a choice, so that is like even harder. I can't imagine.
Yeah, definitely. That would be really challenging. And then there are also those rare people who have like the most glorious pregnancies and they've never felt better in their life. And and they're like, I loved working. Like
I know. That's so
then there are those too. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Gosh, that was not me. I think there was a brief period in the second trimester where I was like, oh, this is not bad. Like I was no longer sick and I wasn't like super pregnant. So I had like a little bit of like a honeymoon phase within my pregnancy. And I remember I did a lot of traveling during that time and I felt pretty good. But
Yeah.
then pretty soon after that, I got to my third trimester and like it was just uncomfortable, you know.
Yeah, and I feel like you have your whole life to work, but you don't have your whole life to be pregnant, and you're not going to be pregnant for a very long time if you think about like your whole lifespan. So you might as well just sit back and enjoy it because you're actually growing a human and just cry
Yeah,
later if you can, if you're able to.
I completely agree. Like raising young kids, and that was something my mom always instilled in me. Like my family is like big advocates of like being a stay-at-home mom. So that was always kind of in my mind. And like you, I always knew like that was the goal. Like I want to be able to be with my kids for at least, as long as I can, like realistically. So yeah, I'm glad and happy and grateful I was able to do that.
Yeah.
Um yeah.
Yeah, I second that because I'm feeling very grateful that I had the opportunity and kind of the way things worked out that I was able to sell my business and kind of transition to something where I had a lot more freedom, where there wasn't this pressure to be like, okay, you have to come back at a certain time and
Mhm.
to like keep going what you had, spent like 6 years developing. And so I felt really lucky about that, just the way it kind of all worked out. It was like, wow, okay, this was pretty. I mean, it was a lot of change all in a short amount of time, but it really worked out pretty well to kind of quickly flip, like who was making more money.
Yeah.
And then sell my business, which also was kind of a miracle that kind of like came together as quickly as it did.
Yeah, that was
And then
awesome
kind of like
timing.
shift into something else, which has
That's
been a
amazing.
huge blessing. Like, and I think I am going to go back to work at some point, and I've already said I'm like I don't want to go back full time, or like I want to go back kind of in graduated stages because
Yeah.
I don't want to miss out on her whole life either.
Yeah.
Like
That's true.
if I can, and
Yeah.
currently I can. So I'm going, so I feel very lucky, and like it's a beautiful thing to get to spend time with your kids when they're really little. And it's also sometimes a beautiful thing to get out and do something else too,
Yeah.
and everyone gets to find the balance that works for them. Because I know moms too who have gone back to work at 3 months and they were like, I just needed to do something else.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is what was best for me. And I'm going, well, then that's wonderful. And that would not have been best for me. Like at 3 months still, I was like, I think it was like around 9 months. All of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got my brain back.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
prior to that, I was like, I don't know that I can truly make totally sound decisions. Like, especially like for my job, because I'm a chiropractor, it's like, can I actually make sound clinical decisions? No, probably not. So I can't go back yet.
It's
Yeah.
so true though, because I think it depends on like your mindset and your personality. And I think that because all of us have a similar views on motherhood and like wanting to be there with our kids, and obviously all of us found pregnancy to be like very intense. I think it makes sense why we all, right now at least, like I'm not full-time stay-at-home mom, and I mean neither one of us is like neither all three of us are full-time stay-at-home, but the fact that we have that similar mentality, because you're right, some people just genuinely don't care to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's totally fine too. Like I've learned with life that, and it sounds obvious, but people are so different. And
Yeah.
sometimes I just assume everyone's like me, but
Yeah.
everyone has different personalities. And obviously, I'm more drawn to people that are similar to me, which I think is why we like all three, like I make good friends with each of you because we
Yeah.
share a similar mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Like I was talking to my mom today after I dropped the kids off at school, and she's like, "Oh, what are you gonna do now?" And I said, "Well, absolutely nothing. I'm not gonna do anything until I pick my kids up from school." And she's like, "You don't like want to do anything?" I said, "No, I want to sit in quiet until my second shift starts at the like, once I pick them up for the rest of the week. So I'm gonna do nothing."
It's funny because I look at it like shift work as well. It's like you have to gear up, like
Yeah.
let's get our rest in because like
Yeah.
especially that like bedtime hour, that's like
Yeah.
that's hard.
Yeah. Like I love it. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like I would rather like not have any more shifts except for the shifts of like being a stay-at-home mom versus, like elsewhere. I'd rather put the work in here for sure.
Yeah. Even though it's not easy. I think that a lot of people think that being a stay-at-home mom is like easy, but honestly, it's very challenging in ways that people wouldn't understand or necessarily realize unless they're in that position. Because it's like relentless. It's just like you really don't get a lot of breaks. And it's like very stressful on your nervous system, I believe. I feel that, because it's like your kids, it's just like a lot. Like me and Asha were together yesterday and like all four of them were being wild. And like I think Asha could tell I was getting I was like my nerves were shot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was just different because we were at your house and like the kids are running wild and you were like, okay, I'm done. Like I can't do this anymore. But I was just like calm. I thought it was kind of funny. But then when we were at the zoo earlier yesterday with the kids running around the playground, I was like, no, I can't do this. Like we gotta go. And you were just like relaxed and calm. So it's like just different things, get
That's so true. And it's funny because that's often the time when I get the most overwhelmed is when I'm at home with
oh
my kids. Yeah.
yeah.
Which is interesting because because I like to get out because
Yeah.
when my parents come to visit, like, if my kids are stuck in the house for several hours, like everyone's bouncing off the wall and I get really anxious and I like don't do well. But I feel like when we have an outing, I feel like they're able to just like, run around and be mentally stimulated. And
Yeah.
so I like to have outings planned, like,
Yeah.
and my mom is more like, well, let's just keep the kids home all day and like just hang out at home. And I'm like, that's fine, mom. But when like 4 o'clock comes around and like we've been in the house all day and my nerves are shot,
Yeah.
like that's on you then because you wanted to stay
Mhm.
home with them all day. I'm like, at that point, I'm tapping out.
Yeah.
I can't do it for that long. Like I really, and I'm the first to admit, like it is, I do find being a mom, I love it. And it's the most rewarding thing ever. But it's also something that has really tested me, like my nerves for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you learn new coping mechanisms.
Yes, definitely. I never knew that I would be one to just like the moments, like you said, when you can just zone out and have complete quiet. That is like it's far and few between. So when I get that chance, I just kind of zone out. Um, and after I put my kids to bed, I'm usually pretty like mentally fried. And when my parents come and visit, they thought there was something wrong with me, like maybe I was depressed because I would just want to go straight to bed. And I'm like, I'm not depressed. I'm exhausted. Like I cannot. My social battery is like in the negative, and I maybe when they're older, I'll start to get back in the positive. But like right now, like it's very depleted. So I just need to be in my room in the dark. Yeah.
No, I totally get that because I have days too where sometimes it gets to be the end of the day and it's like you're like finally all ready for bed and then there's a poopy diaper.
Oh,
Like in like the 20 minutes right before bed, and everyone is like, one person is screaming, the other two want to scream.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like, might be more than I can handle right now. I'm like, I'm so done with this day. No. Like,
Yeah,
let me
and
just like at least have quiet time.
yes.
Yeah.
And that's why they say stay-at-home mom, being a stay-at-home mom is one of the hardest jobs. And they say stay-at-home moms release more cortisol than like, I can't remember what the statistic was, but they release a lot of like the stress hormone. And I believe it.
Yeah, totally. I think I understand a little bit more now why my mom used to go in her closet. She had like a really big closet and she would just shut the door and she would be like, you guys do not bother me. And as a kid, I'm like, why are you going in your closet and shutting the door? But now it makes so much sense. But I
Oh,
always
for real.
yeah, but I always think like, oh my gosh, it's so hard, it's so hard, it's so hard. But then it's like every day, it's like you get through it and like you just make it another day. And it's like, was it really that hard? Like, once there's sleep for like 30 minutes and you've been by yourself for 30 minutes to an hour, it's like, was it really that bad? Like,
Yeah, you get a little moment to like breathe and you're like, no, it's fine. I can do this. Like, and then I'm like that because I will plan. Remember, I think Andrea, remember I came to visit you and I planned to like do a hike with them and
Yeah.
then the aquarium. Like my mind thinks I can do like 1,000 things. 'Cause I'm like, it's not like that bad. But then when it's like actually in practice, sometimes it pushes me to the limit. But it's funny because I was thinking the same thing, Asha, about my mom. Because my mom used to like to rest in her bed.
yeah.
My mom loves to listen to the podcast, so she's gonna hear this. So hi mom. But I remember my mom would love to rest, and I never understood. I was like, let's do something or let's go out. But now that I'm a mom, I get it because I love like my bed is my happy place. Like if I could just lie down just for like, even like a 30-minute lay down just to rest.
Yeah.
My grandma was like that too. She would be like, I'm gonna go lie down. So that was like my mom, I guess my mom's version of going in the closet. Like she would lie down to rest.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it now.
Yeah, my mom used to nap too. Like sometimes she'd come home from school and she'd be napping on the couch, and it was like you did not want to wake her. But she would only need like 20 to 30 minutes and then she'd be like back on.
Yeah.
She's like, if I'm napping, you have
Don't
to be
bother.
quiet. Do not wake me. Do not bother me.
Oh, it's funny because speaking of like sleep, there was that big full moon a couple nights ago. And I don't know if you guys have heard, but people say that like certain kids, or they say that like sometimes your sleep can be impacted for the full moon. So that is really like my kids are very impacted by the full moon and they sleep horribly when there's a full moon. So like a couple nights ago, they woke up at 12:15 a.m. and I had just fallen asleep and then we were up until like 3 something. So like I couldn't get them back to sleep for that long and I was quite frustrated and then I was like, Chanel, I'm not mad at you. I was like, I'm very tired and I'm like, I'm mad at the moon. So she told our babysitter the next day. She was like, yay, like mommy was so tired because we woke up and she was mad at the moon. I don't know why that was just funny.
That is really funny. I think though part of this is why it is important to have mom friends.
Yeah.
Who can, and hopefully
Relate.
compassionate mom friends, because honestly, not all moms are compassionate as well. Some of them are like, well, I could do it. You just get over it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
And I
like,
think
now I know why you're so grumpy all the time. But it's I think it is important for the comic relief and the support and like to kind of not feel alone. I think that friendship goes a long way.
yeah, for sure. I completely agree. It's like the solidarity also. And like there's times randomly where like Aja will text me in like the middle of the night at like 3 a.m. and I just know she's up with her kids or like and then I'll be up too. And so like I'll respond. And it's like that just knowing that
Yeah.
someone else like understands what you're going through, because it is hard, and it's like it's a lot. Um yeah, and that's, I think it's so important to have that support from other moms who understand.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as maintaining friendships, I'm curious what you both think about that, because it gets harder to keep in touch with people in general because life just gets really, really, really busy. Like my older sister, I almost never hear from her. Like,
Yeah.
and she homeschools her kids, and she runs like a side business, and she's just so like, her schedule is just so stacked that it's kind of like, it basically, I only talk to her if I happen to call my mom's house while she's there. And so, and it's just interesting. And in some ways, I think her life has gotten busier as her kids have gotten older. And so it's interesting. So how do you maintain friendships? Because you both have kids who are a little bit older as well. Mine is still little. She's just officially 14 months.
Oh,
How cute.
yeah.
And so
Yeah.
she still sleeps a lot. So I'm like, I can at least respond to text messages while she's sleeping, because she still has like a nice long nap during the day.
Right.
Yeah. Well, enjoy that, because my son is 2 and he's like, absolutely no more naps.
Okay.
No naps. But whenever my husband's with him, though, he does end up taking a nap. But whenever he's with me,
But
it's like,
not with you.
nap.
Oh, that's funny. It's funny how it's different.
Yeah, it's so different.
You're
But
too much fun.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
But,
why can't I be boring?
but it's so funny because when my kids go to my parents' house, like my son, well, both my kids, but my son specifically because he's younger, he will play all day. But if my mom leaves, my dad and my son together, my son and my dad will nap every time, just like with my husband. So I'm like, these men find a way to get these kids to sleep when they're with them.
That is so funny.
Really funny. That's very sweet though, too. I think that's
Yeah.
so cute.
Yeah, I love walking in and seeing like my son sleeping on like my dad's chest or like my husband's chest. Well, not my husband because he puts him in the crib, but my dad's chest or something.
That is sweet.
Yeah.
My
But
dad likes to nap, so I could see that happening.
yeah. But I would say for maintaining friendships, I think when you have kids around similar ages, it like really helps because like both of our daughters are 5 and her son's 3 and my son's 2. So it's like we can always do stuff with the kids because we know like like they're the same ages. We don't have to worry about kids acting different, being older, or just like any problems. It's always just so easy. And I would say you have to like communicate, and not like all the time, but just like keep in touch, just check in and make time like to hang out, just the 2 of you, and like get dinner or get lunch. But I'd mostly just say like communication, really.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like, and also I feel like we both are pretty understanding, because, like, there could be phases where like, there's sometimes phases where we don't see each other for like a couple months, or we'll still talk, but it's like we don't have super high expectations because we're both like
Yeah.
so we're so busy. So it's like
Like
we're
we
under
cancel on each other a lot, but it's okay.
yeah, it's okay. Like we understand. So I think that's a big component too. It's like being understanding, and then but also like we could just pick up like where we left off,
Yeah.
even say if we didn't talk for several, like a month or something, which I don't know if we would go a month without talking,
Okay.
maybe without seeing each other.
Yeah.
But if talking, we probably would talk.
Yeah, but like no matter what, if we did go a month, like I know I could call you or like you would call me about anything, and like it would be like we just talked yesterday.
Yes. And I think that another reason why our friendship really works is that we can be like super authentic with each other.
Yeah.
Because we both come from a place of like not trying to compete or like be judgmental towards one another. At least on my side. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, girl.
Calling me out, girl.
No, because you didn't agree with me right away. I was waiting for that.
I thought you were talking still. I cut you off.
Blame it
I
on,
was just about to
the lag in Zoom.
I know. I was just about to say, being confident in the friendship, and then you're like, you didn't back me up.
I'm just kidding, girl. But yeah, I think that makes it good because like you can come over, like we don't have to put on like a show for each other, basically. And understanding that like, we both have our kids go to different schools, so like we understand that our kids are gonna make different friends and like, you have friends from your daughter's school and like I have certain friends from my daughter's school, but we still maintain our friendship.
Yeah, I would say like over the past year, the majority of times we hung out wasn't with our kids until recently.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like we had a hiatus of like ditching the kids and only hanging out with just us.
You just got a little, and I think anyone with like, it got a little chaotic with like all 4 kids, which it still is, but it's getting a bit easier now that they're
A
getting
little
older.
older.
Yeah. So I think a good balance of like kid free time versus kid hangouts is important. A good ratio.
Yeah.
Right. And then, because I know you both live kind of in the Atlanta region. And I always found like when I was working and I didn't have kids yet, however, I found that when like people lived really far away, I was like, I cannot deal with driving more. How much do you
Yeah.
feel like proximity plays into making it easier to maintain friendships?
I think it makes a big difference. What do you think, Asja?
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference too, because well, especially now that you live closer, it's just way easier to meet because before we lived like 45 minutes away and it was like kind of a lot always having to like drive to Midtown or her come out here. It was just like kind of a lot, but we still did it and I still did it because like we didn't have anything to do, but now
Yeah.
that we live like 25 minutes away, it's way easier because like we can always meet in the middle. Or even if
Right.
we need to meet in the middle, that drive to her house now is still like half the drive of where she lived before. And it's just like we kind of just know where everything is. So it's just so easy to say, meet me here, meet me here. Okay, be there in 15 minutes, or see you in 15 minutes. And like now next year we're thinking about sending our daughter to the same school.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah.
And the school is just like kind of like in the middle of both of our houses. And if we lived far, we wouldn't even be able to do that. So I think it makes a big difference.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always found in Atlanta it was like, especially when I moved to Woodstock, and then all of a sudden it would be like to go to Midtown or even parts of Sandy Springs. I was like, this is so far. It's like 40 plus minutes every time. And I was already commuting almost 30 minutes for work every time. And I was like, okay, like I'm so tapped out on driving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you have a baby who's like crying in the back seat or in the
Right. Well, and then that's kind of the other thing is I'm like, I feel so like I would like to go out more, but I have a baby who hates the car seat
yeah.
and gets motion sick.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So then I
Yeah.
get anxious that she's vomiting all over herself in the back seat. It's like, I have to pull over. And anywhere I get, I'm like, I'm so stressed when I arrive.
Yeah. No, seriously. Like that first like almost 2 years is like really hard.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah, I remember just having the worst anxiety driving with Chanel when she was a baby.
Yeah. I
And her
remember.
feet too, my arm, like I would constantly have to like put his pacifier.
You were impressive though, because you drove a lot with them, just you and them when they were little.
I did, but that goes back to me needing to get out.
Yeah.
I need to get out. Like we are gonna make this work somehow. So, but yeah, I did. And like I think because I did it a lot, they were forced to get used to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was just like, this is this is not negotiable. But they weren't like, they didn't get motion sick, and they also didn't hate the car. So it wasn't too bad. And yeah, so even now they kind of like the car. Because they're just, they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we're gonna go somewhere. Or,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I generally do get out, well, almost every day, but even before I had kids, I didn't necessarily go out every day. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, but a lot of times I'm like, let's walk around the neighborhood.
Wait,
Yeah.
walking around the neighborhood is my favorite thing to do.
I know, I was like, this is so much fun. I'm like, I'm still getting out.
Yeah.
And like, so the other day we walked, so it's usually so we kind of have like a loop and then with like an offshoot.
Okay.
And if we walk, so it ends up being, I don't know, somewhere like a mile to mile and a half walk, depending exactly how you do it. And so it was fun. So we walked all the way to the very back of the neighborhood and we're looking at the trees. And then they have these like beautiful wind chimes on the house. So we just like stood in front of this person's house. I was like, people probably think I'm so weird, but I have a baby. So it makes me like not seem so creepy. We're just like standing and like look like in front of their lawn, like just looking at their front porch and listening to these beautiful wind chimes. And she was like so engaged with it. And I was like, this is so much fun. And I'm like, okay, now we're going to keep going before,
Yeah.
before we scare anyone too much inside.
Yeah. Wow, that's so funny. I love walking around the neighborhood. It's so much fun.
Yeah. And I'm going, that's a nice, easy way to get out. I'm like, I get my exercise, we get fresh air, some sunshine.
Yeah, I love that too.
When we wanted to hang out, she's always like, let's meet first thing in the morning. Like she wants to get out of her house. And I'm like, I am so sorry, but I cannot meet you. Like I need to at least stay home until like noon before I can even leave.
Yeah, that was kind of an issue for us in the beginning.
That was an issue for us in the beginning.
Kids have very different like schedules. Like my kids are early risers and yours like to sleep in.
Yeah, like we were supposed to go to the zoo last week and her kids are up at like 6 a.m. and it's like 9:30. I'm like, my kids are still sleeping. Like I cannot wake them.
Yeah, and I'm like usually like ready to go by like 8 a.m. Like we got to go somewhere, like because my kids are just bouncing off the wall.
Like one time you were like, I'm going somewhere and you're like, oh, it's not even open yet. I'm like, how did you get somewhere before the store even opened? I've never.
Well, I've heard that there's a lot of places that are for kids, like even the children's museum and stuff. It only opens at like 10 or 11 or something like that on some days. And then I've heard especially toddler moms go like, that's practically midday. When you've been up since 5, like that's the middle of the day.
Yeah, that's so true. That I'm one of those people that feels that way. I'm like, things should be opening at like 8 a.m. or even 7. Like 10 is like midday. Like 10 is like, I'm now getting tired because I've been up for like 5 hours already. Like
Our kids go to sleep at similar times. So it's just so crazy that yours are waking up at like 5 or 6 a.m. and mine are like still sleeping until like 9:30, 10 o'clock.
I know my kids have just never been big sleepers, and that's just been something
I was almost convinced my daughter was going to be an early riser, and she's not.
Oh, that's good.
So it would be very rare if we're up before 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Usually like 8:15, 8:30, maybe 9 o'clock would also be a little bit rare. Usually she's up by 9. But more like
reasonable.
8:30. Like today she woke up at 8:45, which was a little later than usual. Yesterday was like 8:20.
Yeah.
But I was convinced I was gonna have like a 5 a.m. like, and I'm like, no, okay, well then I'm just gotta revise my expectations.
Yeah, those are
we're sleeping in. Okay, I can work with that.
Yeah.
I miss those days. I really do. Well, before kids. Like, and that was like a big adjustment for me. I don't know about you guys, but just not being in control of your schedule.
Yeah, I do pretty good most of the time, but every once in a while, it's like, I'm like, I just want to like sit and read like for a whole day and just not
Right.
have to do anything and not
Yeah.
be on like any schedule or be needed, kind of just like totally like check out or like just
Mhm.
watch a whole TV show
Yeah.
Right.
or something like that, and sometimes when she's napping, I can watch a little bit or something, but even so, sometimes it's like she'll wake up and sometimes it's like, oh man, like I really wanted to watch for like an hour or something and have
Oh,
like that
sometimes
little checkout time and
oh, sorry.
and so it's kind of a balance. Like sometimes you don't have the same freedom to do exactly what you want when you want.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for sure.
Yeah.
It's okay too. And it's like, it's okay. Like, let me talk to my little self inside who's feeling overwhelmed or a little annoyed or whatever and say like, it's okay. You'll get a chance to do this later.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the always being needed is something you have to get used to for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's kind of fun in some ways, but it's also can be very taxing in others. So
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the biggest shocks, I think, for me becoming a mom was like not realizing that it's constant, you know? I mean, you think you would know before you had kids, but for some reason it was a shock to me.
but I think there's intellectually knowing and then
Right.
experiencing it.
Yeah.
It's like the nights where like when the baby is sick or something like that, and you're up literally all night for like
Yeah.
3 nights in a row, and you're going like days and nights without sleeping, or in those
Yeah.
very early months, like it's like I knew that there's a certain level of exhaustion and sleeplessness, but then to experience it and live it,
Mhm.
kind of it's just a different experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I know it's going to be like this. I'm not shocked that it's like this. And I'm shocked at how it feels.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think people realize how important like sleep and rest are because like being a parent, the level like you said, the level of exhaustion is just so severe and you're like, wow, I didn't even know I could feel like this from not having sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who's like, when I'm sleep deprived, my mood and my mental like sanity goes down really quickly, like very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I realized that after having kids because I never was sleep deprived. Like I never had that experience. Like,
It's like you thought you were tired,
yeah,
but you didn't even know what tired was.
right. Oh yeah.
It's funny because I did have experience of insomnia. Like
Oh
I
really?
had like a whole year I'd go to bed at midnight and I'd be up at 4 a.m. I actually had several periods of this where I'd go months or like a year at a time where that was
Wow.
the schedule.
I think you told me that. I think I remember you
And
telling that.
and like some of it was like I had some mold toxicity, and then I had issues with B12, and both can sometimes in certain people cause issues with insomnia. And
Oh.
but it was kind of like I felt really crazy because it was like I went grocery shopping and I was like all done shopping, and I
Mhm.
like get back to the car and I look down and I'm like, okay, people are gonna totally think I'm crazy. Like I did all my shopping in my bunny slippers. And it never occurred to me that I had forgotten to put on shoes.
That's so funny.
That is funny.
And so it's like stuff like that. I'm like, so when, or like I had a patient come in once and she had put makeup on only half her face.
Oh my goodness.
Like she had done like only one eye and
Oh,
totally forgot to do the other eye.
so
Wow.
And I'm like, yes, this is sleep deprivation.
funny.
Yeah, it can make you do crazy things, honestly. Like
Right. Yeah, you definitely have to like the stupid arguments you start in the middle of the night when you can't like you don't even know what you're arguing about in the moment. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we just have to let this go because we won't find resolution right now because we're just a little bit
Tired.
too tired to be like even logical enough to figure out why we're upset.
Right.
So everyone just needs to say, okay, we do love each other. We're mad and we're just going to go to sleep. We'll
You-
sort it in the morning.
yeah, exactly. And just know that it's not you or it's not me. It's the child. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's like a season. You know how people talk about seasons? Like it literally, it's like a season. Although I have heard that it doesn't necessarily get easier. Like was it you, Andrew, who just said your sister has older kids and she's even busier?
Yeah, her oldest is going to be 13 in January. Oh my goodness, that's
Oh,
crazy.
wow.
And
Yeah.
and her life has honestly gotten busier.
Wow.
I've heard that with all like the activities and the play dates and the scheduling, that it ends up being busier. So it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know whether to be scared or excited.
Probably up until they start driving themselves places. And then all of a sudden it's like, then things ease a little bit again. And you're like,
And
"Here,
then you're
go
like,
pick up your younger sister now."
oh, well, it reminds me of something I saw a video on TikTok, and it was a mom, and she was saying that, like all the times that we're so overwhelmed trying to take our kids in and out of the car seats. And then it was like her looking back and there was no car seat. And it's like her kids
Yeah.
had grown up. And oh my gosh, I think I sent that to you, Asha. It made me want to cry. I was like,
Yeah.
no, like imagine a day when they're not in car seats and they're like, they don't even want to hang out with me. So it really makes me, even though it's so chaotic, want to
Yeah.
cherish the time.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely have to cherish the time in the moment because it definitely goes by super quickly.
Yeah, like we almost teared up yesterday when oh no, we were on that school tour and we were like, wow, we have 5-year-olds going to
Oh, yeah.
kindergarten.
Yeah.
And you almost started crying, and I was feeling the same way. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Now that's something I used to never understand because people would always be like, "Oh, my kid's going to kindergarten," and then they have like the crying emoji, and I was like, I don't quite get it. Like, it's an exciting thing. And then
Yeah.
my daughter turned 1, and I was like, "Oh my goodness!" No, I'm like, "Okay, I get it now. I get
Yeah.
it."
Yeah. It's like you're totally excited. Because it's like a good thing. Like you're reaching a new level of momhood where you get a break. They're at school every day. But on the other end, it's like you're so sad because you're like, my baby's gone. Like every time I feel like your child turns an age, it's so sad. Because it's like, oh, my baby. Even though you may be feeling mentally better about the age.
Yeah, it's like a double-edged sword. It's like there's like benefits and then there's drawbacks with everything. It's like, but sometimes the thought of, like, we've been touring kindergarten schools, and like the thought of my little baby like being in this big school is kind of scary to
Yeah.
me. I'm like, oh my gosh, like seriously, like I'm gonna be that. My mom ended up like working at my school. I was telling you that. I'm like, I can see that. I can see how that happens. So like, I'm like, hey, maybe once I get my degree, my master's, like I can look for jobs at my kid's school.
Yeah.
I end up being like one of those moms. Like,
I know. Work the front desk.
which you could actually do that because you're a teacher, but you probably don't ever want to go back to teaching, do you?
I don't know, maybe when they're like way older and like once like I'm like, okay, I'm bored, I don't have anything to do, but I'll probably just enjoy while they're at school until they come home and for a long time.
Right, I get that. That's valid. I have the giggles. So, but thank you, Asha, so much for coming today. It was so nice to have you and like talk about how we met and our journey and our parenting journey. So, thank you so much for coming.
Of course, I had so much fun. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, and it's so nice to meet you.
Yes, it's
Almost
nice
in
to meet you too.
person.
I've heard so much about you, so it's really
Well,
good.
same. I've heard a lot about you too, so it's really nice to um get to see a little bit of the essence of this beautiful beautiful person who's been keeping Chantal sane and over the last 5 years.
Thank you so much. That's so nice.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you everyone for listening. And subscribe to our podcast and check us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And we'll see you guys next week for our next episode.